Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Raiders because although this team went 6-11 last season, I think they have a chip on their shoulder. There's a ton of talent on this roster. Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, Max Crosby, there are playmaking studs, okay? They have a chip on their shoulder, but there's so much talent on this roster. Everybody is already writing them off. I think they have the chance to be the Seattle Seahawks of this upcoming season. Basically, the Seahawks last year were projected to win 4 or 5 football games with Geno Smith. They exceed expectations, go 9-8, and now they're in win now mode. Or not win now mode, but they're in win mode. I think the Raiders are on a similar trajectory. It's really going to come down to the defense because when we look on offense, they're loaded. They are loaded on paper. This is one of the best rushing attacks in the league. I'm assuming Josh Jacobs will be with the Raiders week 1. You have Jimmy G, who, by the way, the big thing with Jimmy G, the knocks on Jimmy is he can't stay healthy. Or he was led by his defense. He was led by his coach. I don't care how good your defense is. I don't care how good your coach is. The quarterback still has to make throws. He still has to make plays. He still has to limit mistakes and do what he needs to do to win that football game. Jimmy G is a born winner, all right? And you give him Josh Jacobs last year over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, and you give him Devontae Adams, an undisputed top 3 wide receiver in the National Football League. You give him a couple weapons on tight end in Austin Hooper and Michael Mayer. You give me a top 10 offensive line that kept Derek Carr upright enough last season. That's what we're going to talk about in tonight's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. Raiders fans, Raider Nation, let's try and get this video to 250 likes. If you guys want more Raiders content, let me know down below. But seriously, man, on paper, this offense, I really think they're loaded. Wide receiver 2, new addition, Jacoby Myers. He is so underrated. He had such an underrated year last year with the Patriots, I think just simply because the Patriots' year last year, especially offensively with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, it was a mess. It was a complete and utter mess. But you're getting a pretty much 1,000-yard wide receiver right there at wide receiver 2, okay? Hunter Renfrow. I just learned the saying, third and Renfrow. I absolutely love it. The last time we saw a fully healthy Hunter Renfrow, he had over 100 receptions, and he had over 1,000 yards. He solidified himself as one of the top 5 slot wide receivers in the league. Well, he's healthy, and he's got a quarterback, and he's got an offensive line that's going to give him enough time, and Hunter's going to get open, baby. That's what he does. He gets open. But we get a little bit deeper into the offense. New addition. Cincinnati wide receiver Trey Tucker. He's got a 4.4 40-yard dash. That's the theme I really noticed with free agent acquisitions and in the draft was speed. We saw it with Trey Tucker through the draft, right? We saw it with Philip Dorsett, the free agent acquisition, who is one of the fastest players in the entire league, right? There's speed on this roster, all right? There's pop. There's juice. We take a look at the revamped tight end room because Darren Waller is now a New York Giant. We have Austin Hooper, another one of those just extremely underrated, above-average tight ends. And last year with Tennessee lost their last 7 games of the season. People kind of forgot about him. But welcome new addition, Notre Dame, my favorite college football team living here in Chicago, Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer will have an impact in his rookie season, and his long-term trajectory looks money. And then finally, we have the offensive line. I'm expecting a breakout sophomore campaign from left guard Dylan Parham, all right? But in general, the offensive line gets a lot of flack because at the start of the season, they deployed so many variations, right? It was like 6 weeks, 6 new starting lineups. Right? They couldn't find their guys. They were dealing with injuries. The first half of the season, the offensive line was not good. In the second half, we saw huge improvements, huge strides. This is a top 10 offensive line group, in my opinion, for this upcoming season. But as we alluded to in the beginning of this video, it's all going to come down to the defense. But here's the thing. Defensively last year, well, first off, the offense couldn't put together consistent drives. They broke on the wrong side of breaking NFL records. They gave up the most second half leads in NFL history, okay? The offense wasn't, like, there was a game where they played the Saints. I don't think they got the ball past the 50-yard line that entire game. So what's your defense supposed to do? When we take a look at the defense on paper, it's there's talent, right? We have Max Crosby, who's one of the best at his position. He's just honestly one of the best in the league. You still have Bilal Nichols. You still have Neil Farrell Jr., who was picked up in the draft last season. You still have Chandler Jones. Tyree Wilson, don't rush him back, right? You want him to be healthy. But you have Chandler Jones and Tyree Wilson on the other side of the edge. So they're one of the best edge rushing teams in the league. So, against the run, especially with Bilal Nichols there, they were middle of the pack, all right? They were middle of the pack. Where the issues came in was the secondary. And so that's why the Marcus Peters signing from a week or two ago was a big-time move. All right, he's familiar with Patrick Graham's defensive scheme. He's a ball hawk, something the Raiders have really, really struggled with in the past 2 seasons. I think they have 11 interceptions combined in the last 2 seasons. That's measly. That's bottom of the barrel. Marcus Peters is the definition of a ball hawk. I know he's not, 26-year-old prime, but he is a 3-time Pro Bowler. He is coming off a torn ACL this past year, so he had a down year. And he kind of fell in the Raiders' lap. But he brings this edge. He brings this, he loves to hit. He loves to get interceptions. He brings this certain edge and intensity to the defensive back unit that I think is just going to pay dividends. It's going to like a trickle down effect. Nate Hobbs is one of the more enticing young cornerbacks in the National Football League. The safety position, they brought in a lot of new guys like Marcus Epps, Chris Smith from the draft, but you still have Tremont Moehrig. You still have guys like Duke Shelley, new addition. I shouldn't say you still have guys. You have new additions and guys like Duke Shelley, David Long Jr., great cornerback depth pieces. So the secondary is going to be improved. Also, don't forget about Jacorian Bennett, who was selected from Maryland in this past year's draft. We go back to the theme of speed. Jacorian Bennett has been getting so much positive praise in camp. Guy, a couple days ago, he was guarding Philip Dorsett, who's one of the fastest guys in the league. He was holding his own. He's extremely fast. He's a 4.43 40-yard dash. Wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I kind of anticipate Jacorian Bennett by the end of the season will be a regular starter making an impact on this defense. The big questions are going to come in at the linebacker position. You have Double D, Divine Diablo, who is a rising star in this league. In fact, he's kind of the leader at linebacker. Last year, he was on pace to have over 150 tackles, and unfortunately, an injury ended his season halfway through. But outside of Double D, there's a lot of question marks. It's mainly solid, veteran-esque role players. Robert Spillane from Pittsburgh, Luke Masterson. These are just solid linebackers, nothing crazy, but they're going to do their job. But then they also have some young linebackers, guys I'm really enticed and intrigued by, like Florida Gator Amari Burney. Right? Very enticed by him. You still have Curtis Bolton. He could have a role on this Raiders team next year. But that's my big concern. If I were to pick out a huge flaw for the Raiders, it would be the linebacker position. But like I said, there's experience there. So it shouldn't be the worst in the league. So overall, I think defensively, they're going to be around middle of the pack. They could skew more towards top 10. They could skew more towards top 20. But they'll have a top 10 offense, and they'll have a around average defense. And to me, I know you're in the AFC West, but that's a competent roster. They have a competent roster. So I really think this team is going to shock some people this upcoming season. I'm not saying they're going to win 13 games, win the AFC West, and dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. But don't be surprised if they win 9 games. Don't be surprised if they even win 10 games. The Raiders are on the right track, all right? Hit that like button, hit that sub button. If you guys want more Raiders content, let me know. Most importantly, how many wins do the Raiders finish with next season?